Good evening, and you're joining the national news broadcast on Channel I. We're ready to bring you the top stories from home and around the world. I'm Natalia Viravadan.
A very good evening indeed. I'm Javad Bongzo, and we begin with the headlines of tonight's news.
An alleged patch of diesel mixed into the sea from the new diamond oil tanker. Premalal Jayasekara took oaths as a member of parliament. President emphasizes that the tea industry should be revived based on a holistic approach. Prime Minister says that Sri Lanka will be transformed into a global innovation hub. MP Rauf Hakim says a proposal was submitted to the previous government citing the need for a separate administrative district for the Muslim community. Assets worth 290 million rupees in Vaunia are in waste.
And now on the top story for tonight, Sri Lanka Navy says that a diesel patch has been observed in the sea area at a distance of 1 kilometer from the empty New Diamond ship. It is believed that the patch has occurred from a leakage of diesel which has been stored for the use of the ship. Relief teams have continued to spray seawater in the last couple of days to douse the fire occurred in the rear side of the ship. It has been believed that the diesel storage must have been mixed with the sea, as the position of the ship has been altered, with the spraying of water causing the rear side of the ship to be slightly weighed. Meanwhile, disaster management teams have been able to mitigate the blaze, which was reignited off the ship due to adverse weather conditions, in a successful manner. The ship is currently positioned around 28 nautical miles off Sangaman Point in eastern seas. A total of 500 kilograms of fire-extinguishing chemicals were released from air onto the ship today as well. According to a request made by the Sri Lanka Navy, Sri Lanka Air Force has used 4,500 kilograms to mitigate the blaze thus far. 20 staff members of the ship were brought down to the Hambantota harbour today. They are expected to be directed to an isolation centre. Sri Lanka Air Force has indicated that biosamples were obtained from the staff members for PCR tests. A research team from the National Aquatic Resources and Development Agency, Marine Environment Protection Authority and University of Ruhuna visited the site this morning to inspect water samples to determine if any damage has occurred to the marine environment due to the disaster. Meanwhile, a discussion was held between the Attorney General, Chairman of the Marine Environment Protection Authority and the Director of the shipping company today. Further discussions have taken place on the mitigation of the blaze on board the ship. Disaster management mission partners and teams continue to engage in the disaster management operation taking place in the deep seas around 30 nautical miles off the Sangaman Point.
Meanwhile, Sri Lanka Navy spokesman Captain Indika De Silva briefed on the latest update of the disaster management operations currently underway to suppress the blaze on board the damaged empty New Diamond oil tanker in the eastern seas of Sri Lanka.
The fire on New Diamond, the distressed ship, since last night was largely brought under control at the moment, and still the smoke and the intermittent flames visible from the scene. Now all 5 tugboats are actively engaged in firefighting effort, and other ships are also doing the required boundary cooling. Since this evening, the firefighters have observed about 1 kilometer long diesel patch in after part of the ship. On examining the cause for this, the specialists have concluded that it was due to the flooding of engine room by the waters used for firefighting since last night have caused the flooding of engine room completely, and that caused the diesel which was trapped inside the engine room and the ruptured diesel tanks to float up and mix with the seawater. We also have observed the ship now lies in a position called trim by aft, meaning the after part of the ship has now gone down than forward part, causing the forward part to lift a little bit. This alignment of the ship's hull also caused the draining out of trapped water and the diesel out to sea. It is now being dispersed by the chemical sprayed by the drone aircraft which was parked at the Mattala International Airport since 4th September. What this chemical dispersant does is when it comes to contact with the diesel, it changes the chemical composition of the diesel and converting it to a non-harmful substance. So the environmental impact from this diesel patch will be minimized. Another development, the Sri Lanka Navy have brought the rescued crew members, that is on 3rd September, just after the fire broke out on the motor tanker New Diamond, and they are now residing in Galle Isolation Center. They came to Hambantota port on Sri Lanka naval ship Sidurala this morning. The health authorities and the Navy have taken their samples for PCR testing, and the legal proceedings will start tomorrow.
And in more local stories, Premalal Jayasekara, who was elected to Parliament from Ratnapura district, took oaths as a member of the Parliament today. The Parliamentarian took oaths before the Speaker Mahinda Yaba Apewardana. The Court of Appeal issued an interim order to the Commissioner General of the Prisons to grant permission for Parliamentarian Premalal Jayasekara, who has been sentenced to death penalty, to attend parliamentary sittings. Accordingly, prison officers escorted Parliamentarian Premalal Jayasekara to the Parliament today. Subsequently, MP Jayasekara took oaths before the Speaker at the beginning of the parliamentary affairs today.
අභිනව මන්ත්‍රීවරුන්ගේ නිල ප්‍රතිඥාව හෝ දියුරුම රත්නපුර මැතිවරණ කොට්ටාශයේ පාර්ලිමේන්තු මන්ත්‍රී ගරු ප්‍රේමලාල් ජයසේකර මහතා.
Parliamentarian Premalal Jayasekara was elected to the Parliament from the recently held general elections after gaining 142,037 preferential votes. Opposition MPs representing Samagi Jana Balavegya expressed their objection for the swearing-in of the MP by wearing black collar shawls.
And in more stories, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa emphasizes that the tea industry, which has suffered a severe setback, should be revived based on a holistic approach. President made these remarks during a meeting to discuss future activities of the State Ministry of Company Establishment Reforms, the tea estate crops, tea factory modernization and tea export diversification held at the Presidential Secretariat last evening. Experts in the field pointed out that long, medium and short-term plans should be implemented after scrutinizing loss-making estates in order to increase tea exportation and its revenue. The President said the objective should be to reclaim the status enjoyed by Ceylon tea in the global market in the past, while identifying the factors contributed to the downfall of the industry. 10 out of the 20 major plantation companies are inoperative. It was revealed that the production capacity of plantation companies has been declining rapidly in an environment where the small tea estates achieve higher production. The President instructed the officials to identify causes for losses and inactivity of these companies within a short period of time and to provide permanent solutions for these issues. It was decided to hand over loss-making plantation companies to the tea smallholders as a pilot project. Head of the Presidential Task Force on Economic Revival, Basil Rajapaksa, pointed out that the losses at plantation companies should be thoroughly investigated in a context of where the infrastructure facilities, including roads, hospitals, schools and sanitation, have been provided by the government. He also pointed out the need to provide reliefs to tea growers to engage in self-employment or other livelihoods until the tea plants reach the yielding stage. Experts mentioned that they believe that the setback in the tea industry has been caused due to ignorance of the findings made by researchers in the field. They highlighted the requirement of prioritizing research developments and pursuing new markets for the product. Attention was also paid to the possibility of expanding the bio-tea industry and securing a better profit from its high demand in the world market. President Rajapaksa emphasized on the importance of strengthening the plantation management and supervision. Representatives from the small tea estate sector commended the President for his wise decisions taken during the curfew period under COVID-19 pandemic, which protected nearly 421,000 small tea estate owners across the country. Minister Ramesh Patirana, State Minister Kanaka Herath, Head of the Presidential Task Force for Economic Revival, Basil Rajapaksa, and Secretary to the President, P.B. Jayasundara, were present at the discussion.
And Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa says that Sri Lanka will be transformed into a global innovation hub. He made these remarks while taking part in the inauguration of the first global distribution hub of the HCL Technologies in Sri Lanka. HCL Technologies is the third largest information technology company in India. The Prime Minister said that as a nation, it is a great honor to welcome a multinational technological giant such as HCL Technologies.
The new government has prioritized the ICT sector and establishing a knowledge and technology-based society to make Sri Lanka a global innovation hub. In addition to implementing a comprehensive digital policy for the country, the government is also working on a number of other related programs, including setting up a citizen-centric digital government, establishing digitally inclusive Sri Lanka, and promoting IT entrepreneurship. In this background, today is of great significance. The presence of a global ICT leader such as HCL Technologies is not only an asset to Sri Lanka, but it also sends a strong message to the entire world. Sri Lanka is backing business, having successfully contained the global pandemic. I take this opportunity to congratulate the management of HCL Technologies and extend my very best wishes for this important endeavor. Thank you.
Leader of the Muslim Congress, former Minister Rauf Hakim, says that he had submitted a proposal to the previous government suggesting to establish a separate administrative district for the Muslim community in Sri Lanka. Also, he said that the Muslim Congress is on the same stance at the present as well. He recorded these statements yesterday before the Presidential Commission of Inquiry on the Easter Sunday attacks. Former Minister Rauf Hakim said that the proposal requesting to establish a separate zone for Muslims was submitted to then Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe in the aftermath of the presidential election 2015. Later, several photographs were presented before the commission where Rilwan Hashim, who was killed by the series of blasts occurred in a house in Saindamardu, being with several people of Muslim Congress, including Rauf Hakim. Former Provincial Council member of Eastern Provincial Muslim Congress, Sibli Farooq, said that the photographs were taken while MLA M. Hizbullah visiting a pregnant woman in Batticaloa Hospital who was a party supporter. Injured due to an electoral violent incident arose after appointing Hizbullah as a member from the national list. Then a member of the Kathankudi Urban Council, Mohammad Shiad, who was in the photographs, said that they visited the hospital to see Rilwan Hashim. Later, MP Rauf Hakim said that it was after the Easter attacks when he learned that he was a sibling of Zahran Hashim. He further said that he also visited to see the damages occurred to the Mosque of National Tawhid Jamaat following an electoral violent incident and said that at that time he was not aware that Zahran Hashim was a terrorist. The State Council inquired whether the Muslim Congress had any agreements with Zahran Hashim before the parliamentary election 2015. Rauf Hakim responded that an anthology of conditions were presented by Zahran Hashim to agents of Muslim Congress who participated in the election. The chairing judge inquired whether the witness accept any claims in regard of the awareness made to the Muslim ministers by the former Director of the National Intelligence Service, Nilantha Jayawardena, following up on the speech of former Minister of Justice Vijayadasa Rajapaksa in the Parliament, made in regard of the ISIS activities in the country. The witness said that the former Director of the National Intelligence has not informed them about this at any occasion. The Commission further inquired by the witness on who should be held accountable for not taking measures to avoid the attacks, while intelligence reports were presented. Rauf Hakim said that he does not set the accountability against national-level leaders, but he said that the intelligence chiefs should have informed on this in a more formal way than this. The Presidential Commission of Inquiry on the Easter Sunday attacks inquired the Chief of the National Intelligence, Sisira Mendis, today. Councils of 10 Muslim organizations cross-examined on the evidence presented by Galabadatte Gnanasarathera also conducted today. Several individuals, including State Minister Dilu Mamunugama, Parliamentarian Harsha De Silva and former Parliamentarian Mangala Samaravira, were also summoned to the Commission today.
A complaint has been lodged with the Galle Magistrate Courts today by the Attorney General's Department over two organised criminals, Podi Lassi and Koskora Tharaka, currently detained at the Busa prison for allegedly directing death threats to the President and the Defence Secretary. The magistrate ordered the prison's superintendent to produce the suspects before the courts on September 25th. During a recent visit to Busa prison, Arumahennadi Janit Madhusanka alias Podi Lassi and Tharaka Pereira alias Koskora Tharaka had threatened several higher-ranking officials of the prison's department, including the superintendent of the Busa prison. Delivering submissions before the magistrate, Deputy Solicitor General Dilip Apiri said that the suspects had also threatened the President as well as the Defence Secretary. After considering the submissions, Magistrate Harshana Kakunuwala granted approval for the officials of the Criminal Investigation Department to enter the prison premises to record statements from the relevant suspects. The magistrate also instructed the police to arrange a special protection in the vicinity when the suspects are to be produced before the courts on September 25th.
Steps have been taken to initiate the second phase of the newly refurbished ground of the Daranyagala Sirisama National School. A financial provision of 11.4 million rupees has been allocated in this regard. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa inquired on the issues of the residents in Daranyagala during a visit to the area while attending a public rally of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna held on 18th July during the general election period. The residents of the area requested the President to prepare a proper playground for the Daranyagala Sirisama National School. Responding to the request made by the public, President Rajapaksa said that he will fulfill their request and call the relevant officials to send out Sri Lanka Army for the task to build the ground. In response, the refurbishment of the ground led by Sri Lanka Army was commenced within 12 hours of the request. Work related to the refurbishment has been completed at present. Governor Tikiriko Bekaduwa has been taken steps to allocate 11.4 million rupees for the second phase of the process in accordance to the instructions of the President. Under the second phase, grass blocks will be laid on the ground and the drainage system and the pavilion set to be constructed.
And the Australian High Commissioner David Hawley says that Australia expects to see Sri Lanka as a logistics hub and a key market driver in the Asian region. Australian government has praised the measures taken by Sri Lanka to mitigate the spread of the COVID-19. Australian High Commissioner David Hawley called on Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa at Temple Trees yesterday afternoon. While congratulating Prime Minister Rajapaksa for the election victory and reappointment as Prime Minister, Ambassador Hawley thanked Sri Lanka for the mutual support in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. The two delegations discussed on the impact that chronic kidney disease is having on the populations in both countries. Ambassador Hawley said that 1 in 10 Australians suffer from the disease. Prime Minister Rajapaksa extended his gratitude to Australia for its strong support to Sri Lanka throughout the years. The two delegations also discussed a number of other areas of cooperation, including the sectors of education, vocational training, dairy, as well as cooperation in counter-terrorism and countering people smuggling and drug trafficking.
The academic activities of schools across the country were normalized from today. Earlier, the academic proceedings of the schools were commenced under several phases due to the COVID-19 outbreak. Ministry of Education has informed that the academic activities and teaching process in schools will be carried out in the normal manner, adhering to health protective guidelines. School principals have said that the attendance of students to schools is at a high level in Colombo as well as in other areas. Continuous monitoring will be carried out in school premises over the health protection of the students. A request has been made for the parents to refrain from sending children to schools if they show any symptoms including fever, cold and cough.
And the number of COVID-19 recoveries in Sri Lanka has climbed up to 2,935. 179 patients are still undergoing hospitalized treatment. 3 new COVID-19 patients were reported from the country today. 2 of them were returnees from Kuwait and the other patient has been identified as an inmate of the Kandakadu Rehabilitation Centre. 2,935 patients have recovered thus far, which is a percentage of 93.06. The percentage of active cases stands at 5.72. 1,353 PCR tests have been carried out yesterday, making the total number of PCR tests carried out throughout the country to 242,984. Meanwhile, a new laboratory facility which could conduct tests on several communicable diseases, including PCR tests, have been established at the Narayanpeta Military Hospital premises. The ceremony was held under the patronage of the Secretary for Ministry of Health, Major General Dr. Sanjeeva Munasinghe, Defence Staff Chief and the Commander of the Sri Lanka Army, Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva.
National Samagijana Balawega engaged in a protest action against the proposed 20th Amendment to the Constitution today. The protest was held at the statue of the late Venerable Madhuruwave Sobitathera near Parliamentary Complex. The protest was led by opposition leader Sajith Premadasa. Citizens' pledge against the 20th Amendment to the Constitution was read during the protest, and many parliamentarians of the National Samagijana Balawega were gathered at this occasion.
Today, the red light feature will focus on the economic centre in Vaunia. This is the plight of the farmers in Vaunia who are engaged in trading activities to sell their products. The economic centre concept for Vaunia area was introduced with the aim to render a better service for the farmer communities. The economic centre, built at a cost of 291 million rupees, consists of 50 shops. Even though the construction of the project has been completed 2 years ago, the centre is yet to be vested with the public. Citing their grievances and issues pertaining to the economic centre, the farmer community in Vaunia says that they don't even have the basic needs, including water, and they do not have a proper environment to perform their sales. They also said that the walls of the new construction have also cracked. The plight of the economic centre exemplifies the adverse misuse of public funds. Minister of Trade, we bring this to your attention.
Vietnamese ambassador to Sri Lanka, Pham Thi Bich now says that both Sri Lanka and Vietnam have been successful in curbing the COVID-19 outbreak, while other nations continue to struggle to mitigate the global spread of the coronavirus. She made these remarks while addressing a ceremony held to celebrate the 75th National Day of Vietnam. The 75th National Day celebrations of Vietnam, organized by the Vietnamese Mission in Sri Lanka, was held in Colombo last week. Vietnam's National Day is observed on 2nd September, commemorating President Ho Chi Minh reading the Declaration of Independence of Vietnam in Hanoi in 1945. Vietnam and Sri Lanka have also marked 50 years of diplomatic relations this year, strengthened through the long-standing friendship, political trust, mutual understanding and cooperation between the two countries.
As we mark the 50th anniversaries of establishment of diplomatic relations between Vietnam and Sri Lanka, our relationship has developed in ways many would have never predicted. Since 1970 to this date, our two countries have grown to flourishing partnerships that span political, security, economic, and people-to-people ties. This remarkable relationship is a result of courage, determination, and the visions of many people in both countries. This year 2020, down with a rapid, unprecedented, and complicated spread of COVID-19 pandemic, while nations around the world are struggling to contain the pandemic and its economical impacts, both Vietnam and Sri Lanka have shown considerable success in combating the disease through immediate and comprehensive measures taken in a very timely manner. Vietnam commends Sri Lanka's contributions in addressing regional and global challenges, thus promoting peace, cooperation, and development in the regions and the world. Therefore, we are strongly confident that under the strong and visionary leaderships of the Hon President and the government, Sri Lanka will continue to rise by promoting the existing advantage hidden its role and status in the regions and over the world, while fulfilling the aspirations of Sri Lankan people. in this very important journey. The time-honored friendships and cooperation between Vietnam and Sri Lanka will remain strong to enhance, develop and achieve further notable success in the years to come.
And that's it for tonight's news. Do watch us tomorrow at the very same time. Good night.
Good night.